the man behind SQLearn. This is Spiros Goumas, the person that established SQLearn, the person that initiated also the partnership between SQLearn and RightShip. Thanks, Spiros. So, turning now to our panel discussion, and I would like to welcome Panagiotis. I understand that he survived from a previous panel and now he's with us. Yeah. So, Kostis mentioned that what is very important is feedback from the industry. And of course, when we are talking about procedures, there is always a gap between procedures and the real onboard execution. So, how your organization received RISQ 3.2? How was, what is your first, takeaways from this very first few months of experience? I would like the lady of the panel with the great name Metaxia to open the discussion and share your experiences from your organization.
You like the name? You thought that. Okay, for us, we start with RISQ first of all, and not RISQ 3.2. We were from the lucky ones, having to operate both tankers and bulk carriers under the same DOC, which meant that we had procedures from the tankers industry, which was under a vetting regime for many years. And for this reason, we did have a lot of procedures there which covered partly RISQ. Obviously, we had to make risk assessment, gap analysis to see exactly what was missing from the RISQ, and thereafter with RISQ 3.2 with our procedures, and then make management of change and address all the issues that we had in order to comply with RISQ. The thing is that procedural was where we were almost there. The problem was, as you rightly said, both of you mentioned that it is different what you have as procedures and what is being implemented on board. And there was a good reason that, particularly on the bulk carriers, it wasn't implemented. And the reason was that there was no police. We were not enforcing the implementation because there was no vetting regime at the time. So actually what we were missing and what we had to cover with RISQ and RISQ 3.2 was to ensure that the seafarers were aware of our procedures and they were implementing them. So we actually had to do a number of things, including training, familiarize them with all the changes that we made on our procedures, and do extensive training. But I guess that we were going to touch upon this subject later.
Thank you, Metaxia. What about you, Panagiotis? How have you received RISQ 3.2 in your organization?
Certainly, very similar way like Neda Maritime did, gap analysis, checking, and so on and so forth. The recipe is known by everybody who's here. When a new regulation comes up, we know the process, we know the very nice word about management of change and all these things. Allow me to add in the equation and in the effort that an organization has to exercise to make a change happening is to break the internal resistance when the change comes. I can tell you that the first thing that was discussed in every office around the world, another change, another revision, and all these things, and what BS is this and that, resistance and disagreement, and from shore side and seagoing side, that they had to stop their vacation to come for a rebriefing, for a retraining, for all these things. But in the end of the day, the biggest resistance was not from the seagoing crews, or the biggest resistance I see always is from even senior members of the organization trying to understand that systems, procedures have to be adopted and changed and all these things. Example, the stevedore safety. It is something that comes up with RISQ 2.2, very forceful and all these things. I can tell you numerous discussions. This is stupid, who can control them, and this and that. The biggest time we lose to manage people's reactions and resistance when things
Well, we are always reluctant to changes, but if shipping is moving and is transforming, we have to move in parallel and make that change possible. So, Kostis, you mentioned in your presentation that it's not a matter of size, but from your perspective, what distinguishes the companies that are adapting most successfully to RISQ 3.2?
I have interacted with, maybe, yes, more than 250 companies in Athens and in Limassol and Nicosia. My conclusion to that is that, okay, if you have, there is no, it doesn't matter the size or the complexity of the company or the size of the group, etc. And I can tell you that, in my experience, the highest quality ship management happens from small family companies, which are the bulk of the shipping industry. I would say more than 90% of the companies have less than 5 ships. Okay, that's the backbone of our industry. Now, it's a matter of like Jack Sparrow, Captain Jack Sparrow said, the problem is not the problem, the problem is your attitude to the problem. So he's a very wise guy, Jack Sparrow. So you have companies which they have mixed fleets, tankers, chemicals, gas, and bulkers, and these are the companies that naturally can handle better the new requirements for the dry bulk fleet, stemming from the charters. But aside this group, which has the expertise of the mixed fleet, if you take the pure bulk carrier owners, pure dry players, I can distinguish between the companies that they, as Panagiotis said, they embrace the change and they understand what they have to do, and the companies that, okay, they just postpone whatever they have to do until, yes, the inevitable until they hit the wall, okay? Yes, it is a strategy to wait until you hit the wall, but it has some consequences, and I would say that all the companies that listened, understood, and the principals grasped the change that's happening, they had very good results in the outset. And the companies that they just ignore it and they said, okay, we'll deal with that when it's going to be necessary, they had very bad results, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Can I say something here? The only thing that we need to take into consideration RightShip first and the industry as a whole, is that we need to give time. Okay, because this happened very quickly in the bulkers industry, and those that they were not prepared, the companies that they didn't have tankers or LNG and all that stuff, knowing about vetting inspections, they need time. We have a couple of years now, and actually the statistics show that there is, because Kostis didn't show the improvement that the bulk carriers have made during the last years. And there are other industries which are worse than bulk carriers, we have to say. So what we actually need is for the seafarers to absorb the change, the offices to absorb the change, and give some time. We cannot expect the results that we have seen from the tankers industry within 30 years to see them within 2 years' time. This is absolutely impossible to happen.
I agree in all the points by Metaxia, honestly. Myself, and I believe RightShip as well, we recognize that the pace is too fast, that the time is compressed, and the biggest issue, the more difficult parameter is the seafarers, okay? And they're, I mean, I was in the tanker industry in the early 90s when the SMS was implemented and site inspection regime started, and I remember very well, I mean, the fact how the people who could not on board could not cope with that, and the people in the office, how the captains were reacting, saying, what the hell, you're going to tell me how to do my job? And how we, from the office, I was superintendent engineer at the time, we had to adapt from, I don't know, cutting the bulkhead inside the Ravenna port to let molasses pass from one tank to the other, to a new regime. So, yeah, it rings a bell. Anyway, so it is a journey, and yes, I agree with Metaxia. Sometimes the pace or the pressure is too high, and it takes a lot of effort to do that.
Well, thank you, Kostis. Well, in my very old university times, I learned that marketing is all about 4 Ps. Today we learned from Kostis that this 3.2 is about 3 Ps. Is people, process, and planning. So very relevant to the interventions. The first question is taking into account these 3 main pillars that are very important, and they need to align them. What kind of changes we have to make internally on our management show, or internal inspections and audits, and even on-board execution to meet the expectations. Of course, you mentioned Panagiotis did lactase, but in your organization, what kind of changes you are you have already made or you are planning to make in order to fulfill and implement more effectively the RISQ 3.2?
I will focus on 2 areas: the practical equipment, let's say, things that we had to do. The biggest change that 3.2 brought up together with stimulus safety was the enclosed space entry requirements that because of IMO MSC they had to be changed. So this was a big change, is a big change, and this had to be addressed very properly and structurally with equipment, with how we move from one era to another situation. So that was something that we had to do thinking as engineers. We have this equipment that does not measure this gas, now we need a new equipment that measures this gas and who will use it, so we had to put the engineer's hat and find solutions. The other thing that personally I fought for, and I think we have succeeded as a company to do, had to do with what already mentioned about the people and the breaking the resistance, and we thought that the traditional training does not help because it did not help in the first place. Why I'm saying this? We have seen that IMO came up with the latest MSC on the space because we have still fatalities on the space. So it means that the process was not implemented very well. So it means that the training of this process was not successful at the end of the day. And instead of IMO coming up with technical solutions and new design solutions and with sensors and trips, 1 million things that could have done to minimize enclosed space entry fatalities, the same people, we have the same people on board that now they have to enforce a more stringent procedure. They have failed to implement the lighter procedure, and now they have to enforce a more strict procedure. The same people. The vessel is the same, and the only thing we do is we give them a new equipment to play with. So how can we address this very difficult gap? And we thought, and we got the idea from an external organization through coaching. Because training is training. I sit you down and I tell you, you should do this, my child, and learn this and behave like this. Coaching is a completely different concept, and we realized internally as an organization that even senior people did not have an idea what coaching is and what differentiates coaching from training. And we set up a course about coaching, and we got the superintendents to go through this course, and when they go on board, they're trying to promote, as very well said, about the gap between reality and procedures and so on, to implement the procedures and actually make changes. So this was the other pillar that we focused on, making the change a reality.
Well, thank you. Building on Panagiotis' intervention, I understand that it's not about changing equipment or adjusting training, but it's also a matter of changing culture. So, Metaxia, what do you think on this?
100%. I agree with Panagiotis, and I agree this is a matter of changing philosophy, first of all. We were focusing on something else before, on maintenance, on what we knew, how to do it, and that was all about. Now we have the procedures and we have to follow procedures. We had the procedures, and the gap was that we were not following the procedures in the bulk carriers. That was the main thing that we had to tackle. And we did that, we do that. First of all, we had to hire a lot of more personnel on Azor. This is something that we have to mention. Suddenly our marine department from, I don't know, 6 became double. And this is the reason is that they have to focus on how they will change the philosophy and the culture on board the ship. They are doing cross-checking before and preparation for the RightShip inspection, verifying that whatever we have as a procedure is there and is followed by the ship. And then it's a matter of training, as Panagiotis said. I mean, all the training sessions that we had to do, we did, but it is not working. And the reason is that because it is a traditional way of doing training, by presentations, by writing material, which is something that the seafarers are not following. So we also got into the, not idea, we finally ended up that the best way is by mentoring. We are saying that it is mentoring, not coding things, with persons that they are knowledgeable about their procedures, about what the risk requirements are and vetting inspection in general. And they have to go from one ship to the other ship, spending a lot of time, not doing a superintendent's visit. This is a different thing for us. Focusing only on the job training with the risk by next to them as a requirement on what they have to do. Obviously, the inspectors, the superintendents as well, we have enlarged the checking list, including the risk requirements, and same with the safety officer. But this is something that they, in a way, they were doing it, and now they are doing it in accordance with risk. But otherwise, for changing the philosophy, we ended up that mentoring is the best. And the other thing that I have to say is that we have differentiation now on generations. We have the elder seafarers, we have the younger seafarers. Totally different thing. How an elder like me is learning and how my son is learning. We have to address this problem as well.
Kostis, do you agree that these are the main focus area from your interactions, and of course, what do you believe are still the missing gaps?
I fully agree with what Metaxia and Panagiotis said and the approach that they took, and I will pick up at the last point of Metaxia. Most of us have kids here, and my impression is that generational thinking is changing every 5 years. Every 5 years, the new people are thinking differently, completely differently. I mean, if we go back to the 11th century, between 11th century and 12th century, 100 years apart, people had the same life. They were going with horses, they were fighting with swords. In my lifetime, and I'm 59 years old, I've seen no TV, black and white TV, mobile phone, internet, AI, and all that, and there's more to come. So the impressions I get, the information, the sensory overload that I receive is tremendous and incomparable with what was happening a couple of 100 years ago. So this affects the generations and the generational thinking. So methods applied in the seafarers of the past, where the ships were wooden and the seafarers were from steel, it doesn't apply anymore. So we have to think differently, and we have to approach these people differently because they are different people. And sometimes the gap between our thinking and their thinking is tremendous. And as shipping is a Jurassic period industry that moves very, very slow with a glacier's pace, let's say, we encounter these problems, and unfortunately we resolve them when we hit the wall, because the people on the helm, they are from the previous generation. So yeah, I fully agree. That's a problem, the people.
Well, the more and more we're discussing about the people, I think I'm more convinced that there is a need to rethink education and training, moving from the how to why. It's not just ticking boxes, but promoting more the critical thinking perspective. So the question is, what do you think we should do to ensure that our crews on board, they move from purely complying to the framework to feeling confident and more competent in applying the procedure? So Metaxia, what do you think?
First of all, stop work authority. Since RightShip is promoting it, it is a good thing actually, and we were saying this. True. Actually, we were discussing about stop work authority with the tankers fleet a long time ago before RightShip made it a requirement. We need the seafarers to be able to discuss the issues and listen also what we are saying about and lessons learned, and providing them all the data about the issues that we had overall as a fleet or as an industry, and then make them engage, discuss, and realize what the problems are and how they will resolve them in their mind themselves, to set the processes correct as we have them as procedures, but to have them in their mind. They need to listen, they need to be able to discuss, and some critical thinking, as you rightly said. And then it is all about how we will manage for the young generation to make them understand what we are talking about and what is required there. But things are changing so quickly, but I am really thinking every day how we will manage with the young generation. And I really can't find a solution yet. When we're talking about AI, we are one step too late. Everything we think, they are one step ahead. And I don't know how we'll resolve that. At the beginning, we were saying about simplification of our system, then we said to replace AI, but still, we are not managing with them to the level that we should.
Yes, the more I think about it, I am really disappointed by the education system in our schools for our children. I have 3 of them. And I believe that the system now is based on an overload of information, and the same is on board. The same happens on board. Okay, it doesn't work anymore. I think that what we're trying to do on board is a glorified risk assessment exercise, and we call this SMAs, I don't know, whatever. It's a glorified risk assessment exercise. That is what it's about. Which means we're trying to educate people to understand and manage risk. Instead of loading them with all that stuff, maybe we should go back and in first principles and try the basic things, make them understand, give them, instead of giving them fish to eat, let us teach them how to fish fish, okay? So let us train them to understand and manage risk from first principles. And that's what I think where we're failing. That's what I feel myself actually. That's my impression.
Well, I think Panagiotis, I'm sure he will agree, but I would like to add 2 words so you can also comment this initiative, which is something that possibly is missing from our workforce nowadays on board, and also ownership and the sense of responsibility. So please comment on that in conjunction with what it should change when it comes to training.
Initiative, Do we need initiative? Do we like initiative? Or in reality, do you think shipping companies and the people sitting in the desks want the crew to have initiative? No. Unfortunately, no. This is the reality. We cannot talk about...
So there is a need to change culture, first in the management.
Yes. Kostis said we are living in a different century, perhaps. Initiative by the crew, it is something that is missing, and what is actually missing above initiative, in my understanding, is empowerment. There is no empowerment. And unfortunately, in today's era, in today's shipping, there is still fear. There's fear in the offices, there's fear on board. And this chain has to be broken. certain social parts of population that are willing to accept this fear because they have needs or because they take a better salary. They make a compromise. This will not be forever. Okay? So we have to be very, very well prepared to see what the future will bring and make really confrontational changes in the way we think and the way we see our group, whether we see them as our partners and part of the organization or as tools.
Well, I'm always trying to see the glass half full and not half empty. But what you are saying is a bit of if we have a crew that doesn't want to take initiatives and responsibilities, and on the other side we are also introducing AI and we are not using it wisely, then this might be a recipe for failure. We have to be super cautious.
Can I give an example? You are the master of the vessel and you are supported with AI systems and SMS and procedures, and sometimes you are being told off because you did not do a risk assessment about this and then the next day you have bad weather or you have an issue with your engine and you are missing 10 miles from your new position, and then you receive an order, adjust and provide a fake new position because we don't want any claims. How this will affect you in terms of compliance? So I am the one who is pushing you and say comply, 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 but when this compliance has negative effects for me, then I will say, oh no, 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 don't comply. So this is actually something that is being seen every day by the crews. This is consistency. This inconsistency that starts from top to bottom and affects in reality how actually people behave and see safety.
Well, for me, any master on the ship or ashore is not about only navigating the ship safely. It's about motivating the people, that inspiring the people, or becoming also a person that will be there on their difficult times. And hopefully this is something also that we might also need to focus on training. How to change the skills of the people that they have responsibilities in order to manage people, and not just to manage the vessel, but to manage first the people on board. But since you have the floor in your capacity as the chairperson of the Dry Bulk Center of Excellence, I know that this initiative is trying to bring more consistency and standardization across the industry. So how do you see RISQ 3.2 interactive with the Dry Bulk Center of Excellence, whether this is a complementary initiative or is just something additional? How do you see that?
There are clear synergies.
Okay.
Dry BMS is the equivalent of TMSA, BBC is the equivalent of the organization that runs the self-assessments in the tanker industry. RISQ 3.2 is used to give a snapshot of an inspection of the vessel at a particular day and time with a particular crew. But Dry BMS is seeing this result as part of an overall organization, of the organization's safety culture overall, of how people in the office address and manage situations and processes, evolve and so on. So we are moving into a situation, into a condition where the person who makes a vetting decision, a miner, a charterer, a shipper, a receiver, is not only looking at a particular vessel and based on one particular inspection that perhaps was done 6 months ago, will now in the future, in the near future, be looking at the overall performance of the organization that is managing this vessel and some other vessels. I find this extremely positive, extremely modern. I find this very democratic because it gives an idea that it's not only one vessel, and also it is a unique effort that for the first time and continues, Intercargo and RightShip are working hand in hand. And this means that ship owners, ship managers RightShip, which actually represent charterers, major charterers, are working hand in hand in creating a new situation on the vetting status.
Thank you. Metaxia, I mentioned in the beginning that you are wearing another hat, which is the vice chair of Intercargo. And I do know, and this is always the case when it comes to ship-to-ship transfer, there is this operation entails greater risks. And Intercargo has recently developed ship-to-ship guidelines. So these guidelines, do you think that how they are connected to the RISQ 3.2, how the procedures on training should evolve in order to meet both the expectations of risk and of course to reduce the risk that the ship-to-ship transfer is entailed?
First of all, STS operations in the bulk carriers industry were done for ages and in difficult places and ports as well, and not regulated as it was with the tankers industry. So RightShip saw the gap, and actually it was coupled with an accident that had happened, as Kostis mentioned, with Berge Mosum a couple of years ago, where 3 stevedores died. And they actually took it up and they inserted it as a requirement in the RISQ 3.2. So it is a requirement. The requirement is, of course, to have some procedures about STS operations. On the other side, Intercargo also saw that there was no guidance, industry guidance for bulk carriers, and took this opportunity, and we have made those guidelines in order to assist all the operators, and not only the big operators, but also the smaller ones, and give them the guidance required in order to comply with the requirements of RISQ. This is all about the guidelines and an assisting tool in order to enable the smaller operators and the bigger ones, whoever wants it, to formulate the procedures and standardize the STS operations. So first of all, what is missing is a standardized procedural aspect for STS operations, and then obviously is the training. Training on what you have written, being your procedures about STS operations, communications, how the roles. There are lots of things that they are required under the STS. The only thing that I have to say here is that we do have RightShip on one side and the ship owners on the other side trying to formulate the STS operation, but this is not enough. We have on the other side hundreds of stevedore companies that they have to abide to what we want, and they don't. And we have also charters that we also do not abide. And I have examples, recent examples, because we have set up all our procedures for STS, and we are trying to formulate that and standardize that, and we still see charters that they actually don't want to put the standards to, sorry? They do not agree to those standards, and stevedore companies as well. So it is something, a burden that was given to the ship owners only, but it needs all the stakeholders there in order to make it work.